is Work Together 4-1. The directions. And it says preparing a chart of accounts and opening an account. It says forms are given below. Your instructor will guide you through the following examples. Clara Ross owns a service business called Ross Company, which uses these accounts. Instruction number 1 reads, prepare a chart of accounts. Arrange accounts payable and accounts receivable in alphabetical order. Also arrange expense accounts in alphabetical order. Use a 3-digit account number and within the divisions by tens. So I will explain what that means. But the first thing that we have to do is we have to understand that we have 2 parts to our chart of accounts. So we're going to take all of these accounts, which are all mumble-jumbled up, which is why you need to know your account classifications, and we have to put it on here. And the very first line here, we're going to put in the name of our business, which is Ross Company. Below that, it says chart of accounts. There are 2 sides of our chart of accounts. The left-hand side is called our balance sheet accounts. So that's what I'm going to write, and then the right-hand side is going to be our income statement accounts. What I'm going to be doing from here on down is truly going to be working on just my balance sheet accounts, and then I'm going to come over and work on my income statement accounts. There are 3 types of accounts that go on our balance sheet accounts, and those are our assets, our liabilities, and our owner's equity. So I have to start with my first heading or my first classification, which is assets. And I'm going to go ahead and type in assets. Oops, sorry. Assets start with the number 1, so I have to put in their parentheses 100, meaning all of my assets are going to be in the 100 columns. So all of my assets are going to start with 100. Now, this tends to be the most confusing part of organizing your assets. When we take a look at expenses, expenses are easy to organize because they're alphabetical order. Our accounts receivable and our accounts payable are in alphabetical order. Our assets are in order of liquidity. Big fancy word for a Monday morning. Anyone want to take a guess what liquidity means? In realms of a business? Carly, give it to me. Makes the most money. Close. Not worth. It's going to be the easiest it is to turn into money. Okay, so think about our assets. Our assets truly are things that we own that have value, right? And we're going to put our assets in the order of liquidity, meaning the ones that are easiest to turn into cash are going to have a smaller number. The ones that are harder to turn into cash are going to have a higher number. So what's the easiest account to turn into cash? It really truly is going to be cash. Okay? So when we go through and number our accounts, we're always going to do our account numbers not by 1. I'm not going to have account number 101 or 102 or 103. I'm going to have my first account is going to be 110. Okay, so 110, and that's going to be for cash. Okay, so when I hit enter, it's going over here, but I'm not going to do the right-hand side. I'm going to continue working down my assets. So now what I have to do is I have to be able to look at these accounts here, and I have to figure out what are all of my asset accounts. So now this would be a nice time if I had a smart board we can go through and mark it. Is accounts payable sure supply an asset? It's not. Why? It's a liability. Anything that has the word payable on it means it's a liability. So I have accounts receivable Tyler Link. I have accounts receivable Megan Alvarez. Those are both assets. Accounts receivables are going to be assets. Anything that says the word expense on it is what type of an account? Expense. I know it's Monday morning, starting short and simple. We had a long weekend with homecoming. So these are expenses. Prepaid insurance, what is the classification? Asset. We own it and it has value. Clara Ross drawing? Withdrawal. Cash, we already classified. Sales is going to be what classification? Revenue. Then we have supplies is going to be asset. Okay, now we have this one here that says supplies expense. Don't journalize using that account. We're going to not going to use it until like chapter 7 or so. So just chill on that supplies expense, okay? And then we have another expense, and we have Clara Ross Capital, which is going to be our owner's equity, and then we have another expense. So when we take a look at my assets here, what I can identify is I have accounts receivable. I have 2 of them. I have supplies, and I have prepaid insurance. So when I think about the order of liquidity, the easiest thing to turn into cash truly is cash. And now the next thing that I have, okay, I have accounts receivable, I have supplies, and I have prepaid insurance. Which one is the easiest to get money out of? Accounts receivable, customers giving us money. Okay, so I have 2 accounts receivable. Do you see them up there? I have accounts receivable Tyler Link, and I have accounts receivable Megan Alvarez. Who comes first, Tyler Link or Megan Alvarez? What? Alphabetical by? Last name. Okay, so just like if we're going to organize all of the students here in the school, if we're going to alphabetize them, are we going to alphabetize by your first name? Doesn't make sense, right? We're going to alphabetize by last name. So we tend to have our accounts receivable tend to be our customers, and our customers tend to have individual names, not business names. So the next account that I'm going to do right here is going to be 120, and that's going to be Megan Alvarez. And then I'm going to do 130, accounts receivable Tyler Link. Okay, so I've taken care of my cash and my accounts receivable. Now I'm down to supplies and prepaid insurance. What do you think is easier to get cash for, supplies or prepaid insurance? Right now you're kind of just like guessing. It is going to be supplies. Is it easier for me to turn around and sell a box of paper than it is to cancel my insurance policy? Right? So we're going to do supplies is going to be 140. And then prepaid insurance is going to be 150. Do I have any more assets? What do you think, Brett? Any more assets? No. So now I need to do my next classification. My next classification is going to be liabilities, which start with a 200. Now, how many liability accounts do I have, Isaac? Isaac. 2, I do. And which one's going to come first, Isaac? How did you know that? It is going to be alphabetical. So when I take a look at my liabilities, you can always identify because it has the word payable in them. I have 2 of them. I have accounts payable Sure Supply, and I have accounts payable Mid-City Supplies. So these are the names of businesses, so they get alphabetized by the first letter of their name. So therefore, I'm going to have M is going to come before S. So I'm going to do my first account number is 210, and that's going to be accounts payable Mid-City Supply, and then I'm going to do 220, and that is going to be Sure Supply. Now I'm done with my liabilities because Isaac told me I only had 2 liabilities. So now I have to do parentheses 300, meaning I'm going to do my owner's equity. And I told you that drawing is a contra account to our owner's equity account. So 310 has to be our capital, always. 310 is capital, 320 is going to be drawing. Capital would always come before drawing. So the left-hand side of my chart of accounts is balance sheet, which is my assets, liabilities, and owner's equity. The right-hand side is my income statement accounts, which is going to be my revenue and expenses. So directly below our income statement accounts, I'm going to do parentheses 400 for revenue. Carissa, how many revenue accounts do I have? Yes, and what is it? You betcha. So I'm going to do 410 for sales. And that's it. I don't have any other revenue accounts right now in our happy little accounting world. Eventually we do, but right now we don't. So now I have to do my parentheses 500. And I have to list my expenses. Now expenses are the easiest accounts to classify because they actually have their classification in their account title. So 510 is my first expense account. Expense accounts are going to be organized alphabetically. So when I take a look at my expenses, I have to go through and figure out. The first one I have is going to be automobile expense. Then 520 would be insurance expense. 530 is miscellaneous. 540 rent. 550 supplies expense. And there's our happy little chart of accounts for a Monday morning. So we just went through and did instruction number 1. Now, pretend like our business has been in operation for like 4 months. Okay, so we created our chart of accounts. We've been in operation for 4 months. And then we get instruction number 2 here. It says 2 new accounts, postage expense and utility expense are to be added to the chart of accounts used in instruction 1. Assign account numbers to the 2 new accounts. I had to say imagine that we've been in business for a couple months because it doesn't make sense to make a chart of accounts and then add new accounts at the end. If we go through and a business operates for a while and then you realize, hey, it would be really good if we tracked what we spent on postage or that we've tracked what we spent on utilities separate from everything else, we can go in and add to our chart of accounts, but it always gets added below the chart of accounts where it would say new accounts. So what we have to do under new accounts, on the left hand side here, I'm going to put in account number, and on the right hand side is going to be our account title. So those are kind of going to be the headings, very similar to where we had balance sheet accounts and income statement accounts. The left-hand side would be account number, the right-hand side would be account title. And we're going to add these in the order that they were given to us in the directions, okay? So the first one that they said right here, 2 new accounts, is postage expense. Well, what I'm going to do is under the account title, I'm going to put in postage expense because that's really the name of the account. So now what I need to do is I need to figure out what is its account number. And remember, our accounts always still need to be listed in alphabetical order. So postage expense needs to fit in here with all my other expenses. So where would it fit between? See, now you got to sing your alphabet. Dale, where does it go? Yes, it's going to go between miscellaneous and rent. And I don't want to number it 531. And I don't want to number it 539 because I could add other accounts in between there. So since there are no other accounts in between there, I'm going to give this the account number 535. I'm going to put it right in the middle because that gives me room between miscellaneous and postage to add some, and between postage and rent to add some account numbers. My last account title that I'm going to add is going to be utilities expense. And again, utilities expense needs to be added in alphabetical order. So Seth, where does utilities expense come in our list?
After supplies.
So what should its account number be?
560.
560, yes. Certainly 560, not 555, because we can go in increments of 10. So there's our chart of accounts. There's how we go through and create new accounts. We still have to do instruction number 3. It says using the account form, open cash. All right, so now I need you to look here because I need to explain this a little bit. This here is our general ledger. Okay, we have used a general journal, and now we're going to use a ledger. A ledger is a singular accounting form used to get information pertaining to only one account. When we go through and use our journal, anytime we journalize a transaction, we always have to affect 2 accounts because we have to make sure our debits and credits equal. And that our accounting equation stays in balance. So this is our ledger. A ledger is organized from left to right. We have our date column. We have an item column, which you're only going to use 95% of the time that you're in accounting class. We have this post-ref column. Post-reference column should look familiar because we had that on our journal as well. I said ignore it till we get to that chapter. You're now in that chapter. And then look here, we have debit, credit, and then I have balance, debit, credit. On the top here is an option for you to fill in the account title, and then over here is going to be the account number. We already know the account numbers for all of our accounts based on our chart of accounts that we've already created. The whole purpose of our ledger is to give us a balance of that account at any given point. Because if we don't have that, if you were a customer and you called to me, and I've been in business for 10 years, without using a ledger, I would have to look through every month's journal for the last 10 years in order to determine how much you owe me. Does that sound very efficient? So we have to take what we put in our journal and put it into our ledger, and that is called posting. But in order to do that, we have to have a ledger open, and to open a ledger, it's really simple. We fill in the account title and we fill in the account number. Think we can handle that? We're going to spend a whole bunch of sections worrying about how numbers go in the bottom section of it, but it's important to understand what a ledger is. So I do believe that we had to open the account cash. Is that right? Yep, open cash. So in order to do that, under the account title right here, I'm going to go ahead and fill in the account heading of cash, and then my account number, which is 110. Go through, check that answer. Woo-woo! I got it all right. Go ahead and try on your own.